I know. I guess maybe just in case somebody on doesn't know who you are, maybe give us a little insight into who you are and what you do and why you're here. And if you have any questions, let us know, and we will answer them. Otherwise, we'll just sit here and bullshit for a couple hours.
Great. So my name is Jim Sabellico. I am I would technically term a serial entrepreneur. One of those people who's cursed with making a business out of everything. I started my first business at the age of 8, landscaping in my neighborhood. Ultimately wasn't that successful. Maybe, I don't know, $100 a week. All sorts of crazy careers and jobs throughout the years. Everything from, when Nextels first came out with their first color phone, I used to hustle wallpapers and ringtones from my parents' house on our middle school lunch breaks. Back through a couple car audio businesses, and now it's blossomed into a whole host of different companies, from marketing to development to restaurants to building we're in right now is auto and truck repair and customization. So I've kind of been blessed to be able to take my business ability and apply it to a whole bunch of different niches that I really enjoy. So I always look around saying I'm living the dream, but it's kind of true in a way. I get to really dive into all these different businesses and industries, and obviously the running a business part kind of sucks from time to time, but it's fun to work in industries that you care deeply about. It's not really work when you're having fun. I guess is what I'm trying to ramble into. Yeah, so now I met Chris. We co-founded Legiit, and here we are.
Great. Hey guys, if you have any questions for Jim or for me or for anybody else, like in case you didn't catch that, Jim is the co-founder and the, I guess, technical lead on Legiit and on audit. So we can talk about those. We can talk about web design. We can talk about SEO. We can talk about whatever you'd like. I didn't really have a plan for today. I just wanted to bring someone on because it'd been a few weeks. Randy says, hey guys. Hey Randy, what's going on, buddy? Randy recently sent us a picture with his Legiit t-shirt, and well, he made the rest of us look bad.
Hi, Randy.
Is that a chocolate bar in the background?
That is a chocolate bar in the background. That is the first official Legiit chocolate bar. It's actually not. What's over here? Here. It's actually just the case, because the chocolate bar I ate. I know it's delicious.
Excellent.
Dark chocolate, in case you're curious. It's the only way to go.
Yeah, actually, there was like 15 people asking what kind of chocolate it was, so I'm glad that you covered that and cleared that up for everybody.
Yeah. No, it's a big concern, but dark chocolate all the way.
Kirill says, do you work at home, Jim, or do you work mainly in one of the offices at one of the many businesses?
So mainly, I usually home base here at TLC. This business requires most in-person, or I guess not requires, but benefits from the most in-person assistance day to day. So I usually spend the majority of my days here. If not, I'm on the road. I tend to not work from home only because I have 2 young kids and a wife and 2 dogs that don't really like me sitting still. So yeah, it doesn't work well, but most of the time I spend here.
And that's TLC. What is that?
TLC Auto and Truck Center is everything from service and maintenance of cars, RVs, trucks, tractor trailers, up to customization, like full restorations of hot rods, to anything that rolls or floats.
Even if it's unnecessary.
I've always had a passion for cars. Yes, or necessary, one of the two. But I've always had a passion for cars since I was a kid. and wound up getting started out as a marketing client of mine, and then I wound up getting more and more involved through the years. But it was nice to be able to kind of complete the circle from just contacting them and working with them from a marketing standpoint to now being physically in the business.
I didn't know that.
It's nice to do that. Yeah, true story.
Jessica says, Jim, how do you manage owning multiple businesses? Do you have any personal time?
So that's a tricky question. Personal time, I try as much as possible to not be in the business on weekends. Pretty much during the week is a lost cause. I'm usually at the office from like 4-ish in the morning until we'll say around 6:30, 7 o'clock at night. I'll get home, usually, hang out with the kids for a little bit, homework, bath, bed, that type of thing. Weekends I try and just not work, and obviously as much as possible, and hang out with family time. For me, it's worked best to try and be 100% in or out for one of the two things. I try not to mix family stuff while I'm at work or work stuff while I'm home with the family, because then they kind of both suffer. I again am pretty fortunate to really enjoy what I do in all the different businesses. So for me, working long ass days still sucks, but it's not terrible because like I said, I enjoy what I do. So I don't really have a lot of personal time. I don't really have hobbies. This stuff is my fun. I get a certain high out of growing a business or making a good networking connection, something like that. So that answered the question.
All right. Phil says, what is it you enjoy out of business? Is it getting them off the ground and marketing them, or the day-to-day management, as you have so many businesses to manage?
Out of those things, I think I enjoy the getting off the ground part. The initial push usually is the most enjoyable for me. With taking like a brand new idea and running with it to try and build it into something, and I think the initial momentum and the energy around a brand new idea really helps to kind of carry you through and take as much massive action as possible. The thing I really enjoy the most, honestly, out of all the business things, is making good networking connections, and then finding a way to take one really good connection from one business and tie it into another business. For example, in this business, the Auto and Truck Center, we do a lot of work with a certain manufacturer of bumpers. And I was able to build up a really good relationship with them, then transition them into a really good customer for the marketing company. So it's nice to be able to kind of come full circle and tie everything together, where they're providing value to us in one company, I'm providing value to them through another company, kind of everyone wins. So I like that scenario as much as possible.
Do you find that, you said one of the things you like the most is getting it off the ground. Do you find that to be dangerous at times? Like, you start a lot of them, and then do you ever start a lot of them and then kind of lose interest? Or you have projects that don't get finished because once the initial part gets started, because you get kind of bored? Because I know that happens to me. So yeah,
there's been some type of some projects over the years that have started out hot and heavy and then either fade off or get replaced with something else. And I think the ones that are important enough get picked back up. They may lose the initial steam, but not go away. Some of them just die off. And I think it's important to understand that when they do die off, if you weren't passionate enough about it to continue it, then it might not be something you want to really spend that much time in the first place.
I've just seen that to be a type of addiction that some people have. Like, they love getting from 1 to 50, but from 50 to 100 is the hard part, where people lose interest, because at that point it's just optimizing little thing after little thing. as opposed to the rush of, setting up your sales funnel and bringing in new leads and all that stuff, the fun stuff. So I know other people who I will not name that are mad about that. So I was just wondering if that was something you'd seen before. And I had seen a couple projects you've started that didn't end up coming to fruition, but
right.
I have a few of my own as well.
It's definitely, it exists. I think, like I said before, a lot of it has to do with passion, though. There are some things that, for whatever reason, you connect with and you have a deep passion about what you're doing. And then that type of passion, and when you really enjoy what you're doing, you're able to kind of get through 50 to 60, 60 to 61, 60 to 61, 62. I think once you get past a certain point, it becomes exponentially harder to kind of move the marker further.
Mm-hmm.
And when you really enjoy that part, it's nice to kind of be able to enjoy the struggle, because the reward from it that you get back is usually even better.
Awesome. Jeff says, what do you enjoy most or would focus on if you could only pick one in digital marketing as a service? SEO, Facebook ads, web design, etc. I'll let you take that, and then I'll give my opinion on it as well.
So for me, I think the thing that I enjoy the most is probably the development part, like web development or app development, physically taking an idea and bringing it to life. It's almost weirdly like childbirth in a way. You kind of run into these people who've had this idea in their head, and they want to start a business and they want to sell widgets. They don't necessarily know the right way to do it. We can link up with them, kind of come up with a good game plan, and then to be able to take that game plan and develop it into an actual program, business, that sort of thing. I enjoy the most. I think there's also something there about being able to physically complete something and hand it off to them. I don't necessarily enjoy Facebook ads or web design as much. For some people, it gets to be very personal. Obviously everyone's going to have their own independent style. Something that I might recommend as a really good way for either UI, UX you might hate just because you hate the color, you hate the look, you hate the feel. And I don't always enjoy the feeling of explaining to you why it's a terrible idea and you want to do it anyway, and then you're going to come back to me in 3 months and say, hey, it didn't work. So, I don't always enjoy that back and forth part as much, but it's enough for people.
Great. For me, it is community building. And this is what I did when I worked in politics as well. But I like building up a bunch of people around a common interest or cause, and then helping everybody get to their end within that cause. And maybe it's pompous, but I think that's probably been my greatest strength in business or whatever. But that's my favorite part, is coming up with a way to bring people together around a certain thing. And I've had success with that in at least 2 of my careers so far, and I really enjoy doing that. Even though it can be, it has its own set of headaches. Danny says, hey, can you please sing one of the songs you sang on The Voice? How is Blake to hang around with? Jim, you want to bust out some lyrics for us?
Yeah, I'm good on that one. My wife would probably rap for you, but you won't get that from me, unfortunately.
You make it seem as if I weren't being honest when I say you were a runner-up on The Voice.
You are correct. I was certainly not. I don't think anyone here would want me to sing or dance.
Joe says, let's try and see how this works. Joe says, I'm doing many things pretty okay, and people say you should do one thing great. How do you do so many things great? It's a good question.
You definitely don't. I would not say I'm great at a lot of things. I think the important part is to understand what you're good at and what you suck at, and hire around what you suck at. There's certainly a lot of things I'm not good at. And there's also like the time efficiency thing where could I develop a website from A to Z? Yes. Could one of my guys do it in a third of the time? Yes. So is my time better spent doing something else? Yeah, usually. But I think, when you're first getting started, you kind of have to wear a lot of different hats and kind of fill in all the different roles. But once you can afford to and kind of schedule in where necessary to outsource and kind of hire around whatever your weaknesses are or things you just don't enjoy, I'd recommend that strongly. I definitely try and do everything that I do well because I don't like doing things half-assed. But I'm certainly aware that some things I just shouldn't do.
Sounds good. So you say you try to do the things that you do well, so you don't really do anything.
Yeah, I definitely don't.
All right, let's see. Keith says, hey, Chris and Jim. Keith, good to see you.
Hi, Keith.
Jessica says, if someone has a business idea, what are your first steps on getting started moving that idea to an actual functioning business?
This is a tough one.
It's a great question.
So in some instances, I will document out as much as I can, like in the thought process, to just write out what it is I want the business to do, how I want the business to make money, what the values of the business would be, and just kind of think it through to figure out and make sure that the business is what I'm going to want to be involved in 6, 12, 18 months from now. Oftentimes I feel like people have an idea for, hey, I want to start a business, but then they start writing it out and they realize, oh, hey, I'm going to have to do this and that and this and that. And they see further down the line and realize it's not something that's really aligns with their abilities or their goals. There are certainly other instances where I will literally jump in headfirst into something, start on it tonight, and have it done for tomorrow, just because it's something that I think is an amazing idea. Historically, out of all those ideas, I think I've probably failed at 85 to 95% of those. The 10% that have succeeded have outweighed, the 90% that failed, as far as like financial success. But you have to really enjoy the process of failing and kind of learning to take your lumps.
Awesome. You sound a little bit like Gary Vee then with the I love to fail.
I kind of do. I think that there's also a certain part that you have to be willing to just lose it all. Thankfully, my wife won't ever see this, but she hates the fact that I have to risk every dollar I have on one of these ideas. Certain people are just risk adverse. Some people don't mind just throwing it all out there and hoping for the best. But personally, I my personal gut instincts is if I feel like I have a good idea, something that I think will work or is worth investing in, I'll go all in. Like I said, it doesn't always work out, and I've certainly lost a bunch of money on it. But I know that the pros are eventually going to outweigh the cons if you're willing to just keep working.
Yeah, I've done that. I've done that too. Like twice in my life now, I've quit a stable, decent paying job, benefits, all that shit, to go do something else that I wanted to do. I quit my job to go work in politics, and then I did that for a few years. Then I got back into the comfortable IT job, and then I quit to come do this. And both times it's paid off well. But a lot of people, both times, well, not so much the second time, but the first time told me it was a terrible decision. And they were wrong. But they could easily have been right. So
I think there's a lot to say about listening to other people's opinions. I'm curious your take on this, because a lot of times I'll notice people will tell me, hey, that's a terrible idea, or it sounds cool, but you'll never be able to make it happen. That type of thing, or people who tell you, why the hell are you getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning? Why don't you sleep? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? A lot of times it comes from people who are living, quote unquote, average lives. And you kind of have to keep in mind that the person giving you that advice is not the person that you want to become. because it's not easy to get around a lot of people who have that fire burning inside and who understand that you kind of have to think outside the box and believe in the unbelievable.
And
I'm sure a lot of people are going to be faced.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. The people that are telling you that stuff sometimes are people that really care about you too, and they think they're being helpful when they say, you know, take a day off, balance your life better. But it's not. I'm not being mean when I say this. I just they don't get it, and it's not necessarily. They just aren't in the same mindset as you, so they don't mean it badly when they tell you that, but it's not what you need. So.
Right. Yeah. No. Absolutely. I mean, look, my life is not for everyone. Obviously, yours not. Everyone's gonna live their own life, and they kind of have to find whatever job's best for their own personality. Yeah. But a lot of people they're happy being comfortable, getting their paycheck every 2 weeks, getting their 14 vacation days. They know exactly what tomorrow's gonna bring. I don't. It can all go away like that, but I'm willing to take that risk. Right.
Yeah, that's kind of a mantra of mine is one bad day, that you're always one bad day away from losing it all. So you have to work as hard as you can to make it that day be as bad as possible to make it all go away. But no matter how successful you are, you're always one bad day away from losing it all. That's not entirely original. I lifted the phrase from a Batman comic book, but I think as a concept, it works really well. Alrighty, we are caught up on questions for the moment. Do you have anything you want to talk about? Put you on the spot there.
Yeah, you know what? I actually have a question for you because it's something that I've been thinking about as well. Recently, not recently, it's been a while now, but you've put a lot of emphasis on improving your health. Working out, eating better, tracking your sleep. I'm curious for your opinions on how you think your productivity.
Well, I mean, I don't want to go overboard because I know it's almost like a trendy thing right now, but like the sleep has definitely made a big difference. Like for me, the little app that tells you how well you've slept really helps you adjust single little variables. I feel a lot better. I feel like I get a higher quality of work done. If I look back at the list of stuff I've gotten done over the last, I want to say 6 months, it's phenomenal compared to the previous 6. This may be oversharing, but I don't feel as bad when I look at myself on these things. It's definitely something that you can go overboard with. I know some people that are so focused on biohacking, futurism, and all that shit that they overdo it, and they spend so much time on it trying to optimize their time. They spend too much time optimizing their time and don't actually do anything. So you can go overboard with it, but it's definitely something you can't neglect. You have to, eat properly. And I immediately, in the way my brain works, I noticed it almost overnight between fixing the diet and fixing the sleep. And the other thing that's really helped, and it's partly because I now have some more support, meaning more team. I hate saying staff, more of a team. And what that's allowed me to do is kind of create a regular routine. So I get to the office between 7 and 8. I work till, depending on the day, between 5 and 8. And then I go home, which is somewhat of a normal routine. And before I was doing that shit where you come in at 4 a.m. and stay till midnight, and I get just as much, if not more, done, and I get a higher quality of stuff done now. So being able to set up a routine has been huge. Taking care of my health has been huge, and learning to sleep and eat better has been huge too. So that's a good question. And yeah, so is that something you're working on as well? Or?
Yeah, what's actually weird, my wife and I have noticed, I have a son and a daughter. My son is going to turn 6. We've noticed that when he doesn't nap, his behavior is terrible. Or when he drinks red Gatorade, his behavior is terrible. And we can pretty directly link it to, either of those things. And the thing we got into discussing the other day was, odds are that stuff doesn't just go away when you turn 18. Oftentimes, we look at like the spirit of hustle and like no days off. But, I think it's important to realize like what you put into your body and how you treat your body is what's going to come out as well. So like as adults, we can't just eat crap and drink energy drinks and kind of work 30-hour days and not sleep at all. It's interesting to think about. People don't often talk about that enough in business, I think.
No, I agree. A lot of
there's a lot of mindset like, you have to be willing to.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But no, it's okay. Like I said before, I'll often get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, but I'll be in bed by 9:30. That works for me. I personally do fine on 5.5, 6 hours sleep. Any longer than that, I lay there. But not everyone is wired for that. Some people need 8 hours. But I think it's important to just kind of pay attention to your own body as if it were an employee. You have to be willing to, kind of take a step back and analyze, are they getting the resources they need to do their job effectively? And I think it's interesting that not enough people look at that type of thing in business. They think you could just stomp on the gas pedal and just work all day long and that whole take massive action thing. Mm-hmm. But it really has to be properly balanced to be able to get results from that massive action, not just smashing your keyboard for 20 hours a day and then money's going to come out of it.
I haven't really seen the correlation between working a lot more hours and getting a lot more accomplished. Like I get just as much accomplished in 8 to 10 hours now as I was in 16 hours 6 months, a year ago. And, I'm as miserable all the time. There are days, but so yeah, it's important. I think that culture is changing a little bit. There's a lot less of that hustle all the time, Gary Vee nonsense, but I think it's still a problem.
Yeah.
We got some more questions. Joe said, I'm sorry.
Okay.
There's a delay between what we're guys, so why we keep doing that. There's a delay. It's like a kung fu movie for us. So he doesn't know I'm talking or I don't know he's talking until we've interrupted one another. So that's why that keeps happening. We're not just both rude assholes. Only Jim is. Sleep has been my enemy. My sleep cycle is inconsistent, but that could also be from having a 3-month-old and a 2-year-old. That's actually, it's not exactly a question, but Jim, you have young kids. How do you manage do you spend good time with them? Or like, to me, it blows my mind that you're able to do all the things you do and have children, because I can barely keep up with my cats. So.
Yeah. So 2 things there. One is all credit goes to my wife on like taking care of the kids. Biologically, there were needs that I couldn't fulfill when they were 3 months old that she could. So she got the job. But she's been an absolute rock star with like allowing me to sleep those 5 hours. She's also a full-time mom. So, she kind of has her role. I have mine. But I think that goes back to what I said before about being 100% all in on your work. So definitely, like, if you're able to spend dedicated time with your kids, then do it, because they're certainly obviously going to be 3 months old and 2 years old. And then next thing you know, they're going to be in pre-K and then they're going to be graduating. But sleep is going to kind of just suck for now. I don't really have much advice on that. Just wait it out.
All right. Jessica says, Chris and Jim, where do you find your motivation to keep going when you have bad days or bad weeks running your businesses? I'll let you start.
Jessica's had fire questions lately.
Yes, she has.
This is actually a pretty good one. I will go sometimes a couple of days where you just have just shitty days. And it could be for no reason other than just the universe conspires to just throw a bunch of crap in your way. But I think it's helpful to kind of just take a step back and look at. And it sounds very cliche, but like you've survived 100% of your bad days. Like you have to know that life right now you're going to get through, and then in a month you'll look back and you'll say, oh, I made it through that, and now the next thing that's going to come up and you're going to realize at a certain point you can get through it. One of the most interesting things that I do with one of my partners in this business here is we use Slack for all of our communications, and we have a channel in Slack called Bullshit. And basically what we do is we'll just load it up anytime it's very bad or negative, either an accident or when you're having that really bad day, basically it's a spot to go and vent. And what we'll do is we'll go back from time to time and randomly look at, well, hey, I remember we had this issue with the insurance company 6 months ago. And this was this whole big dilemma, and now we can move past it. And now it's just a little problem that we can look back on and laugh. Mm-hmm. But it's helpful sometimes to go back and look at all those things that in the moment were, oh my God, this is the worst day ever. And now you look back at it like, I wish I had those problems today.
Yeah. I was going to say something similar, actually, is I'm really big on the Facebook memories thing, like on this day thing. Because I look through that every day and I see problems and things I used to care so much about that I'm like, what the fuck was I even thinking? Like, I don't care about that. So I try to then think about that in the perspective of the current problem, and that it's not going to matter in a week, a month, a year, however long it is for that particular problem. It's only it's going to get better. You're going to get through it. And the other thing I do, and we joke about this a little bit, is I find a way to turn it into a positive or to make lemonade out of it. That's probably one of my biggest strengths, is figuring out a way to take a negative thing that happens and turn it into a positive. And not just for some hippie, feel good reason, but a lot of the biggest breakthroughs I've had have come that way, including some stuff we've talked about recently. So that's the other thing, is find a way to accept that what has happened, and find a way to get as much juice out of it as you can. So those are kind of the two things that keep me going. So.
Yeah, I think for all of you, hold on, don't interrupt me, wise guy. Give me credit. One of the things that I really hope everyone can take away, if you only ever learn one thing from Chris, I really hope it's his ability to take lemons into lemonade. Because honestly, for me, this is not going to be like some weird awkward thing, but it's a trait of his I really admire. There's like an undeniable just desire to see a situation that happens and figure out some way to turn it positive. And 99 times out of 99, I won't even give you out of 100, he'll figure out a way, and the next day we'll talk about, oh, hey, remember that bad thing that happened yesterday? Here's what we did instead. Now we turned it into a new feature. Some people who are familiar with developing might say, hey, it's not a bug, it's a feature. But honestly, like the ability to take problems and the worst thing in the world and turn them into, hey, how can I find the silver lining? Is honestly a skill of Chris's that I wish I could have. So pay attention to that and try it yourself.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kevin says, Jim, what does your diet look like in a day?
So typically I don't have breakfast. I don't like making breakfast. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's not a lot of options that are great for you. So usually what I'll do is I'll wake up and I'll just kind of be in the mode of work. So I'll get right to it. Next thing you know, it's 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, noon, and I'll find myself having lunch. I actually, oddly enough, we were talking about this before, I typically get meals delivered, like prepared, from freshly.com. I tried a few of them. We were talking about Kettlebell Kitchen before, but freshly.com is the one I actually use. For me personally, it's just super convenient to know that in the middle of my day, I don't have to think about what I need. I can literally just grab from the fridge, throw it in the microwave, and 5 minutes later I'm done and move on. I try and eat well. Dealing with a lot of client meetings and on the road a lot. Sometimes it doesn't always happen, but I think like even relating into your business, some days aren't going to go according to plans, but you try and make up for it tomorrow. As long as you're always pushing in the right direction and trying to kind of lead a healthier lifestyle and be conscious of actually what you're putting into your system is pretty helpful.
He didn't ask me, but I'm going to answer anyway. I don't usually eat until, and this has been a huge change I've made in the last 6 months, but I don't usually eat until I get home. So 5, 6 o'clock. That means I go, and then I eat like all of it within the 6 to 8 hour span, if not less. That has been really helpful for me because one, it's not something I have to think about during the day that way. And two, I found if I eat lunch, I'm just absolutely wiped out. And that, like, for the rest of the day. I don't know if there may be an underlying health cause there that I need to look at, but if I eat lunch, I'm in a food coma basically for the rest of the day. I'm completely worthless. So it's kind of like intermittent fasting. I didn't set out to say I'm going to do intermittent fasting, but it's kind of what I do because I don't eat until I get home. And then I just eat like a fat heavy meal, like 75% fat. And then the rest is like low amount of carbs and then a higher amount of protein. So that's worked out really well for me. I learned a lot by watching Chris Winters' Facebook. He's an internet marketer, but he also has a big fitness business type thing. And I've learned a lot from him, but that's really what's worked well for me over the last 6 months. And that's helped me a lot too. So plus, it brought back the joy I get out of cooking. Cooking is actually something I enjoy, although I don't do it much. I mean, I do it once a day, but not like, a few times. That's an ideal day. There are other days when I'm like, fuck, I'm hungry. I'm going to have to go get a snack. But even then I try to get something that fits within those macros. So. I think you're muted.
Yeah, sorry, there's cross traffic going on over here. I'm trying to keep it from being too noisy. So I have a question related to your comment on Chris Winters.
Okay.
About like your inner circle and the people you surround yourself with are a reflection of who you are and who you're going to become, which I think is largely true. Like you are a combination of the 5 people you spend the most time with, I think is the quote I'm looking for there. I think it's a really undervalued thing that people can surround themselves with podcasts and Facebook groups and that sort of thing to get themselves in a mix of the right people. It doesn't necessarily have to be like people who are geographically near you, or you can pick up the phone and call. If you commute for an hour a day, this is what I do. I spend a lot of time in the car, so I'll often load up on podcasts, try and surround myself with positive, influential people. So I may not physically be able to be with that person, but I can spend 2 hours listening to everything they talk about every day for 7 days a week. So I'm just curious on your take on that and kind of what you think about surrounding yourself with people who are either they have a skill set that they can teach you or a little bit beyond your skill set, even in your current role. What your thoughts are on that?
Okay. I'd like to wait a minute to make sure that you're done since we have a bit of a delay. Obviously I agree. I take tons and tons of training. I'm glad you had the caveat of not physically being around them because I was thinking about it the other day, and other than like, cashiers and that sort of thing, I haven't seen another person in almost a month. So that's probably not great, but anyhow, I'm glad you added that caveat to it. But yeah, absolutely. You want to learn from people that are a little bit ahead of you, and you want to help people that are a little bit behind you, and you want to surround yourself with people that have the same mentality issue, or even not necessarily the same mentality issue. If you're an asshole, you don't want to surround yourself with other assholes. You want to start finding better people to be around that will improve you. Like that Chris Winters example. I don't know how I stumbled on him. I guess just from being in the industry, but just following his Facebook posts, and I scooped up his health course, which was only like $30 or something. And that really has changed a lot for me. Finding Alex Becker years ago was definitely key for me. I know he has his own set of challenges, but that was key for me. And then I've like to think that I've helped bring up people that haven't done, I feel so vain saying stuff like this, but that haven't done the things that I've done to give back to them as much as possible, because I think that's a big part of it too. And I think you need to find, whether it's professional organizations or friends or groups or whatever, you need to surround yourself with people that are where you want to be and are also like you, that want to be where those other people are. It's very, very important. I think sometimes it gets a little bit cliche and some salespeople take advantage of that, but it's definitely very important, I think. So that's kind of my response to that. Kirill says, Jim, what are some things you noticed that really helped you land more sales for your digital agency?
Doing the right thing by your customer, being willing to go above and beyond, and making sure that the job is done properly, even if it's not something that they're necessarily asking you to do and paying you for. So being able to kind of, I really don't want to say under promise and over deliver because it sounds so cliche, but just trying to really make sure you do the right thing. In our digital agency, we actually do not advertise ourselves. All of the work that we get has been word of mouth. We don't take on a lot of new customers. We tend to deal with more of a higher end clientele. So instead of doing a lot of low profit and volume, we tend to do bigger jobs for more profit. If that makes sense. So I think a lot of it has to do with doing the right thing and getting that reputation among clients that you're going to do a quality job. It's not necessarily about the dollar. It's about making sure that they get the proper value.
Great. Krill says you don't seem to do a lot of self-promotion like Krista. Not sure how to take that. Saying I self-promote too much? Was I just insulted? I always thought that I know I've done a couple lately, but I always thought I didn't do a ton of self-promotion. Anyway, he says, or he may just not be aware of it. I know Orange Chicken sells itself, but curious what kind of marketing you focus on for your other businesses and what shows good results.
I think the answer to that question, just going off, like running through them in my head, still largely applies back to the, like even selling sushi. We do social media. Everyone does social media. How many times are you going to go on Instagram and like a picture of a sushi roll? Not a lot. But if every time you go there, you feel like a rock star and you always get, delicious food and you feel like you're getting great value for your dollar, you're going to come back for more. You're going to tell your friends, you're going to bring your family members there. When you go to get your oil changed and the service is phenomenal and you get your car back and it's vacuumed and cleaned, you're going to be really happy with the value you got and the service you got, and you're going to tell somebody. In almost all almost all the businesses, there's a mix of email marketing, Facebook ads, social media, just because they kind of have to be out there. But I think the underlying promotion that works best, or the underlying principle that works best, is going above and beyond for your customers and kind of raising the standard for what you feel their experience should be. There's not a lot of people who are going to be willing to have as high standards as you will. So I think if you're willing to go above and beyond for your customers, whatever the industry is, that they'll take notice. That's pretty much all.
Also Uber Eats. I remember the day that you had the Uber Eats photographer coming and how excited you were about that. I thought that shit was funny. Whatever. Keith says, Jim, I'm not sure if this was covered earlier, but did you start your own agency while you had a day job? If so, how did you juggle the two?
So I did cover earlier the fact that I've been in business since I was 8. It's kind of been in my blood. I've always been hustling to try and find ways to make a dollar. When I started this agency, I was working another full-time job. And it started out, which is actually an interesting story. The very first customer I had was a website I did for free. And that one free website I did for someone, I treated as if that customer was paying me thousands of dollars for. That customer is a customer to this day. We're actually redoing the website for about a 4th time. That was 8 years ago. That one customer wound up having a family member who worked in a Fortune 500 company. Wound up, just hearing how well I treated her for a free service. So she gave me the opportunity to talk to them. They wound up giving me the opportunity to work on one of their assets, and things just kind of spiraled from there. So I think it's funny to kind of look back on starting it. It was something I did literally from my parents' basement. Me with a laptop, just hanging out, not even really a desk, but just trying to do the right thing for people has really kind of brought me to where I am.
Great. I didn't ask about me either, but I had to juggle it as recently as 2016, having a day job and making client calls from the bathroom and not doing my job, instead of focusing on my business and stuff. So just take any spare moment you have. I used to look forward to the weekends so I could do some work, because that was like 8-hour blasts of productivity toward my business I can get done. I don't know. I mean, there's no good way to do it. It depends on the job too. If you work in like retail, there's not going to be much you can do. You're just going to have to use your mornings, your evenings, and your off days. If you work at a desk job, do as little of your job as you can get away with and focus on building your business as much as you can. It's probably not the friendliest advice I can give, but I think it's good advice. And that's kind of what I did. So,
yeah, I think there's actually even more to that. You can, if you're working at your day job now, if you can figure out a way to get 10 hours of work done in 7 hours, you basically freed up 3 more hours to kind of, even if it's just mentally, thinking about your side hustle. So if you're willing to kind of figure out how to work more efficiently and either work harder or just work smarter, one of the two, you're able to find time in your current day job to work on your side hustle. Like I said, even if it's just doodling on a notepad, ideas for your business.
As much as you can get away with.
I think that also helps. Yeah.
So that's something I've tried to create in the culture here I don't really separate my companies, but I'll just say at Legiit is that, George has his services, you have your own, I have my own. I want everyone to be able to get as much income and grow as much as possible, even if it's outside of the company. And I even support and help that in a lot of cases. So George sells services that compete with mine, and that's fine with me. I don't want to hold anyone back from excelling. So.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Anthony says an emoji. Keith says, that's a great story. Thanks, Jim. Jeff says, great story and advice. Brian says, and Brian, are we related? I've been meaning to ask you that. We should look into that. Anyhow, he says, I know you believe heavily in outsourcing, but do you work with VAs or have employees who oversee the freelance work as far as ordering gigs and making sure everything happens on a schedule? I'm finding that part of my work becoming a challenge lately. That's probably more for me than it is for you, but I think we can both weigh in on that. I'm very fortunate. I have Georgie, who is my director of operations at Legiit. He also runs all of my Legiit services. So the stuff I sell as Superstar SEO on Legiit, he runs all of that, and you should go out back if you can find it. I can link to it if you want, but you should go back and watch the live stream I did with him a few weeks ago, because he gave some magnificent advice on how to manage all that. But I guess what you're asking is, do you need to hire someone to do that sort of thing for you? And I would say, yeah, as soon as you let it cut into your profitability to hire as soon as possible. It's something I was very bad at. Like Georgia was my first employee. I don't even think of him as employee, first team member. And that was only 2 years ago. Up until then, I was literally doing everything myself. So, and that was not a good way to go about it. So I regret doing that, and it held me back. So yeah, definitely hire as much as you can. As far as employees versus freelancers or VAs, there's too many variables to really answer that. It just depends on your situation, I think. But for the most part, I don't have anyone under the same roof as me. I have one person that she lives very nearby. So if I need something physically, someone physically in that area, we have that. But I mean, the rest of them live literally on the other side of the world. So, and then Jim, who I talk to quite a bit, he's in New York. I'm in South Carolina. It's only a quick flight, but we've only done that once. So, and what do you think?
The difference between as far as like finding freelancers or VAs or delegating and finding other people, whether it's an employee or a freelancer, is certainly a challenge, but to kind of lose control a little bit and understand that finding someone, a couple of things. One is you have to understand the fact that things aren't always going to be done to the same standard you would do them yourself. So, for instance, if there was something I wanted done, I might do it a very specific way. Whereas if I have an employee do it, they might do it a little different way. We're going to get pretty much the same end result, but they might get it done 90% of how I want. So you have to be willing to let go a little bit of that control, to understand that they're going to take their time, which you're paying them for, to get you to 90%, but they've saved you all that time. So you can spend a little time at the end teaching them how to do it your way or getting it the extra 10%, and you've saved that initial time span. So understanding that you can let go and lose control a little bit of all the things that are in your day-to-day life, even though they're not going to be 100% how you want. If you invest in the right people and train them on the way you want to do things, they're going to get better. I think, Chris, you'll agree that the people who we have working for us in various businesses really care about what they're doing. They may not do the job 100% as if, but it's not like you don't necessarily judge them on skill, because I have a skill set, Chris has a skill set. We all have our own individual skill sets, but each individual person is going to bring a little something different to the table. But surrounding yourself, like we have, with people who care deeply about the company, about your future, about getting to your goals, that stuff is more important than finding someone who's going to want. You can certainly,
which you're never going to find anyway.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. There's this awkward moment when I'm waiting to see if you're done, and it seems like I'm just sitting there being quiet. So forgive us for that. It looks like we're caught up on questions. It's almost been an hour already. We got about 5 minutes left. So if you guys have any more questions for myself or for Jim, or if there's anything you want to know or whatever, let us know. In the meantime, Jim, what else? Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Brian says thank you. Thank you, Brian.
No problem. Let's see, what else do we talk about? We can talk about new and exciting adventures, I think.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So this is a very good case of I don't know how I want to phrase it. So one of the things that Chris and I often talk a lot about is, we get to interact with those businesses in a way from either a marketing standpoint or a development standpoint, consulting, SEO. We get thrust into the middle of someone's business, and they're asking us to, hey, do me a favor and help me market this product. So, part of what we wind up doing is not only necessarily showing people how to do SEO for their landing page, or how to set up a abandoned cart for their e-commerce store, but often giving them advice and insights and more of a technical training and sort of business consulting on how to properly structure the company, how to properly set up certain processes. So one of the things that we're looking to start doing in the very near future is essentially bundling that up, that service that we're providing for people in different avenues, into one neat little place where we can kind of better serve people with questions. I don't know if I explained that as well as I wanted to off the top of my head, but essentially what we're looking to do is try and deliver help and advice and kind of be a good resource for people to go to when they have questions for growing a business. So it's way more than just getting traffic to your site, but simple questions like, what do you do with employees? How do you pay them for sick time? Ranging from that stuff to everything. What do you do with people who call in late? There's a ton of different stuff that you're going to deal with as a business owner. So that was a very appropriate question. Mm-hmm. So there's a ton of different things that you can deal with as a business owner that you might not have a really good resource for, and especially when it understands digital businesses. There's a lot of people that have coaching programs to teach you how to be a better salesperson, but they might not necessarily understand the intricacies of how to do e-commerce. So Brian, your question is well timed. One of the things that we are considering doing is exactly this. So more news to come, I think, in the coming days.
And I didn't mean to skip over other people, but I just thought it was well timed that he asked that question while we were doing that. Keith says, when hiring a VA, isn't it important that they know, I guess he's probably saying, is it important that they know SEO or that they can just follow procedures? As long as they can follow a set of instructions and you can communicate those instructions in a way that people can follow. I spend a lot of time learning how people learn so I can teach better. So that's helped a lot. But, like George and Ahmed, they didn't start off being like big into SEO, and now they like run my whole SEO business for the most part. So I think as long as you get someone who can learn, it's a much better skill than someone who has skill, especially in SEO where there's so much ego and people, think they have to, people that think they know things are hard to work with in my experience. So do you have anything to add to that?
I agree. And, I think it's like we said before, hiring someone who cares deeply about the company, I think oftentimes is more important than hiring someone who knows how to do the job you're putting them into. Obviously, if they're familiar with what you're doing, it's helpful. Like I wouldn't want to hire a mechanic who doesn't know anything about cars. Right. But, if we have one who, let's say, understands the very basic principles of how a car works compared to someone who's been on the job for 20 years, if this new guy has a lot of passion and intensity and cares deeply about the goals of the company, I'd rather have him here, even though he knows one fraction of what this guy knows. Guy is going to get you a lot farther in the company.
Yeah, there's an old baseball analogy that says if you have two guys, one that has perfect technique and can run the bases right, and one that has okay technique but a lot of hustle, which one would you rather have? And the answer is supposed to be that you want the guy with the hustle, because if you give him the technique, then he's going to beat the other guy. So I think that's a good analogy for this particular question as well. So I think I butchered that a little bit, but I think I got it across. It's funny that the delay there, you saying I agree, happened right after I said I think I butchered that. So that is...
I'll let you decide whether I agree to that or not.
All right. I think that is going to do it. It's been an hour. Yeah. Any final words?
Just it's been my absolute pleasure to spend this time with you, Chris. And I'm obviously blowing some smoke up your webcam there, but I think it's a good time to kind of talk about this type of thing, and kind of freestyle on the business aspect, more so than just always getting into what SEO service do I need for my Google Map Pack ranking. This sort of thing I think is obviously more relatable. A lot of people have kids, they have sleeping problems, they have health problems, they have like a lot of this stuff that applies to all their businesses and just life. So it's kind of it's enjoyable to kind of get out there and do this part. And you're right, I certainly don't self-promote myself. I'm more of a background guy. I don't really have any like courses to sell or anything like that, so I don't really get myself out there. But I'm here. I lurk in the groups as a resource. So if you need me, tag me, ask me questions. I'm here to help.
I apparently self-promote all the time, according to Kirill. But all right, guys, that's it for this week. I'll be back next week, I think. Sometime in October, I'm probably going to wrap these up for the year and then come back strong next year. So if you have any questions in the meantime, ask in the Facebook group. Somebody in there will always be able to help you. And if not, I'll find somebody that can help you as best as I can. So thank you for taking time out of your day. Have a great weekend. And most importantly, figure out what you want out of life and go out and get it, because you owe it to yourself and you owe it to the world. So have a great one, and I'll see you again soon.